never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Hello, folks. How are you? Having a bit of a, Tuesday it is today, isn't it? God, I'm a bit of a brain fade myself. It has been one of those days where I have been stuck in front of a very hot computer all day, and it has started failing on me just in the last few minutes. So if the screen goes dark and I have to pop out of the room, it may require me doing a complete reboot or something else. So, but just feeling the old girl, she's very hot and has been all day, unfortunately. Hoping you're not feeling that way, although it is getting into that time of year where hot it certainly is. And if you're out cropping at the moment, and there are many of you who watch, I know, maybe sitting on the tractor listening to it now, listening to the show now, if that's the case, or sitting in the header, then my best to you. And I trust that that the season goes well for you at the moment and nothing's breaking down too much. That'd be the way. Tony was in the room first up tonight. Hope you're doing well, brother. Followed closely by Donna. And what the, you bastard. Very disturbing email from What the today. A very disturbing email. I'm going to play it for you, folks. Now, this may disturb you as well, but I can tell you that this email came from What the, with no explanation, no nothing. It was just a video. Watch this, and it's shocking, folks. It's shocking. Watch this. Complete and utter bastard. And I'm not talking about the puppies. I'm talking about What the sending me pictures of puppies. You bastard. There aren't many people in my life who know I've been considering getting a puppy-type companion. And I've considered it a couple of times for the bus. But because it's the bus, it's a bit difficult. And I don't think it's fair on the dog. So I've resisted all said urges. But you bastard. I don't even know if they're your puppies. You just might have found a puppy video. It's just, you bastard. It's very unfair. But anyway, thank you for thinking of me all the same, because they're absolutely gorgeous. And I have a bit of a soft spot for blue and red heelers. So, yeah, there you go. You knew there'd be a show on when you saw this news today. I'm gathering that might be about the Cossack. Don't hold back, will you, Nevin? That's very funny. Well, we will get into the Cossacks' problems shortly. Hello, Connie. I hope you are doing well, and your other half, Alan, legend that he is. I hope you guys are doing well. And I'm expecting to have one of those frozen dinners for dinner tonight, just between you, me, and the gatepost. Aussie Sue is in. Don't forget to please like and subscribe the show, folks. Please. We need it for the algorithm. Every little bit helps. A thumbs up. And if you get something out of the show, you feel you might get a laugh, or you get a little bit of news that you may not hear anywhere else, or at least you might get some questions posed about the news that you are hearing everywhere else, then please subscribe. That way you won't miss a show. And there'll be some new and exciting things coming up, which we will need to do. We'll need to keep you informed about coming up in the near future. Now, I've just seen my text, which says to Pete, yes, right, okay. Pete from Pinaroo has sent me a text saying that his brother had reason today to be in a post office, and they were requiring digital ID for changing of postal address or diversions, that kind of thing. I think digital ID is going to be something they're going to require everywhere, everyhow, but they have to supply a version whereby you don't have to look into whatever and get identified by however. And take that up would be what I would urge at all times in all cases. Take up the option not to go into digital ID. They will make it a longer process, but that's their problem, really, not yours. You go prepared for that. It shouldn't be frustrating. And eventually, a bit like the jab, these things will wear off. Well, the jab didn't, but the necessity to have it did. So we're strong people. We can bear this one out. Spazar, nice to have you in the house. The lovely Rachel is in there. As long as he's fully clothed while he's in there, you reckon that's all right, do you? I think you're being
when you come to
unfair.
Sydney, mate, just know this is the Aussie Cossack's backyard.
Yeah, no, I helped you by leaving your comment up there. You couldn't see the cleavage, but next time around you may not be so lucky. Who else is in the chat tonight? Paul, nice to have you in. Judith, nice to see your face in there. Anne, nice to have you in for a chat. Dick, Maria, the lovely Michelle Bradley Smith, Daniel Weir. Daniel, there's a chance I'm going to be in Canberra. We need to be in touch, so email me, carl@vofhq.com. I want to be in Canberra to help with Wade Northhausen on, I believe it's the 24th when Parliament goes back. He's going to be staying 2 weeks. I won't have the bus down there unless there is a vast, huge amount of donations pour in and enable me to get down there and back in the time required. But my plan is to get down there somehow, some way, probably drive the car down if I have to, and be there for at least the 24th, as he did ask last time we chatted. And I said I would like to be there to support him in what he's doing here. I believe the farmers are going to get a lot shafted through them in this last 2 weeks of the sitting year for Parliament. And part of that will be what's happening in Victoria at the moment with the access of the people who want to put up those wind turbines on farmers' land. The farmers are pushing back, not allowing them on the land. There's quite a lot of that now happening, and it's good to see that there is some political support. I think if people went and talked to Ralph Babbitt, you might find he'd get behind that pretty strongly too, and find him standing at a few farm gates when these people turn up to start measuring how much of your land they're going to resume to put up a filthy, dirty, stinking wind turbine that'll kill the birds and not provide any power unless they're planning on putting in the transmission lines, in which case they're probably taking a lot more of the land. And more power to the farmers who are resisting this, because clearly the farmers aren't doing it for nothing. The properties that have these monstrosities on them have been paid to have these monstrosities on them. And in fairness, in some of the areas that I saw in far north Queensland and in probably some of the other areas I've travelled past, there isn't a lot of use for the ground that these things have been put on the top of a range. I mean, other than a walking track or maybe some wild goats living up there feeding, I can't imagine there's too much that goes on up there. But I don't know the area very well. It might be a very well-known, popular mountain climbing place for all I know. So now destroyed because that whole range through the Atherton Tablelands and down south has been just destroyed with these ugly, bloody things dotted all over them. Was that farmland usable, profitable for the farmers? That's where I'm getting at. Well, look, if you've got land that isn't profitable, I don't think I begrudge you making money out of putting a windmill up. If you can't, grow feed on it, if you can't put animals on it, if it's of no real benefit, then yes, put a windmill on it, and by all means, charge them a fortune and get paid $10,000 a month or whatever it is that you get paid. It's probably a lot more than that once it starts producing. But it has to start producing, and once it starts producing, that energy's got to go somewhere, so it's got to actually be connected to the grid. and those transmission lines are seriously lacking in a lot of cases and places. So, yep, if it's unusable farmland, by all means, I think we could probably do something with these windmills if we had to, and it would really be having to. But by and large, I would not support their use in any way, shape, or form. The lovely Sandy K is popping into the room. You haven't missed much, darling. We've just been chatting about you behind your back. Now that you're in, I can mention the Donkey Sanctuary, of course, and our lottery, if you'd like to help out Sandy and the crew at the Donkey Sanctuary, because it is a fairly expensive business to feed 108 donkey mouths, plus her own and her husband. Her husband's quite a big bloke, probably eats 2 donkeys worth every day. He's, sorry, Baz. They are wonderful folks who have just so much on their own plate to deal with. But the Donkey Sanctuary has been around for 53 years. And since Queen Elizabeth the second died, there was a donation that used to come from the Queen to the Donkey Sanctuary. Now, I don't know if that has only ceased since the Queen's death. Might have been before that, I don't know. But the Queen was very fond of donkeys, and they were her preferred animal, so to speak. And she and Sandy's mum had a bit of a pen pally kind of friendship there for a while, where they would be discussing donkeys. That was many, many moons ago, obviously, before I was going to say the Queen turned into a lizard and her sister turned into a horse, but that's probably being unfair. So if you can help out, $2 is all it'll cost you. Go to merch.vofhq.com, buy a ticket in our lottery, and you might win $750 or a gram of gold, thanks to, it's not thanks to Ainsley Bullion, it's just Ainsley Bullion Gold. It's thanks to a couple of you who've donated that gold, and we're able to give it away. I think we've got about 250 on tickets left to go in this lottery. So if you haven't already bought a maximum of 20, please, if you can, go and buy another 1 or 2 and get us a little closer to our goal of sending a bit more money to Sandy in the benefit of the donkeys at the Donkey Sanctuary. Sunflower, I hope you are well and life, the universe goes well. Daniel, did I say? I did. I'm coming to Canberra. Email me, carl@vofhq.com with your phone number, because I thought I had it, but I don't think I've got it for whatever reason. And I would love to catch up with you in Canberra, whether I'm in town for a day or a couple of days. I don't know at this stage. I've got nowhere to stay if I don't bring the bus, and I certainly don't really think I can afford a motel anywhere. So, or maybe out at Queanbeyan, they were pretty cheap, and an Uber. But I'd love to catch up with you. I know I meant to do that last time I was in town, I think, and for whatever reason, it just got all too hard and it never happened. So my apologies. I haven't forgotten. Still keen to catch up. Gisela, lovely name. Susan, lovely to see you in. You got the electric heater going. Well, in Tassie, things do get a little chilly. I was speaking to Black Sheep today down there. He's was getting very animated about the state of the state in Tasmania. The crime rate in Tasmania is astonishing, going through the roof. One of the things that Black Sheep was looking forward to doing was coming over to the mainland next year and having a bit of a holiday, if you like, spending maybe a couple of months trekking around, meeting up with me and spending a bit of time on the road before going back to Tasmania. Now, that's had to be curtailed because of government control. But I also get the feeling that because of that government control, you can't put anybody in his house for the time that he's away. And because of the crime rate, he doesn't want to leave his house without anybody in it, because when he comes home, it's likely to be, I guess they're not going to steal the house. But there are quite a few things around the house that they might take the liberty of removing. And, that would make life very difficult. So Tasmania is also suffering under some pretty bad crime assaults at the moment, and they are of varying different sizes, degrees, and natures, but most of them are petty theft, like house break-ins and that kind of thing. And while that sounds, calling it a petty theft, it sounds wrong to me, because a theft of any kind makes life very, very difficult for all people concerned. And I feel for you if that is the case. Also in Tasmania today, as you're probably aware, Tasmania is a huge lobster, or has a huge lobster industry. I think they made a TV show out of it that was running on one of the networks there for a while, and a couple of characters on boats going out catching some red gold, I think, as they refer to it. Now, most of the lobsters, if not all Tasmanian lobsters, the best ones anyway, are immediately sent for export to where else but China. Now, today, I think, or the next day or two, was due to be the opening of the new lobster season. And the lobster fishery in Tasmania is worth multi-millions of dollars a year. But just before opening, a number, I think it was 3 or 4 of the main lobster fishing areas were shut down, and lobster fisheries or fishers were told not to go in there, into those sort of places, until further notice. That led to a few questions. Why, on the very eve of the opening of the lobster fishery and the biggest time of the year for this industry, would they be closing down certain parts of the habitats where they find these lobsters, where the big money is to be made? And the answer has come back: salmon. So I don't know whether or not you're aware, there is a lot of Atlantic salmon grown in the Great Southern Ocean of Tasmania, or in Bass Strait, or in the Pacific. I think it's the Great Southern Ocean by the time it gets as far south as Tasmania, and particularly the southern ends of Tasmania, where the lobster fisheries are. In fact, the lobster fisheries are all around Tasmania. And some of them, particularly a big one between Bruny Island and Tasmania, that particular passage has been shut down completely until further notice. Why? Because of salmon. So these salmon fisheries are grown in big round nets out in the ocean or out in a bay, but they are grown, captive grown, and then they wind up in your salmon tins, or they get sent to China predominantly, where they are put into the food chain, the Chinese food chain. Now, recently, and I'll start quoting a couple of things here so that we can all get it a little bit right. China has decided to change their import rules on the food. And that means that anything that could be infected or have certain things in them, certain drugs in them, means that that product is not going to be accepted into China. So 2 zones within Tasmania's rock lobster fishery were closed. There's actually 4, I think, now. Now, these were within 3 kilometres of salmon farms that are using an antibiotic called fluorofenicol. And it is for that reason that these fisheries have been closed. Fluorofenicol is an antibiotic used in predominantly veterinary areas and used in the aqua farming industry quite a lot. An antibiotic to help fight off whatever it is that fish grown captively and very tightly bunched together in a net off Tasmania might catch. The question I have is, if it's this antibiotic that's being put into the fish 3 kilometres away that could float downstream and somehow get into the lobsters and infect them that are going back to China, to the, the big tables of the Chinese Communist Party, why would it be okay to have it in the salmon? if you're putting an antibiotic into the salmon, but the possible flow-on effect to that local ecology area is that you can't catch the lobsters because they might get a bit of this fluoro, whatever the hell it was in there, in their system, and they're going straight back to Chinese plates. Okay. So why is it okay for this stuff to go into the human food chain, into salmon captively grown? And I presume sold to other markets, not just China. Interesting question, I thought, didn't you? It's weird. I can't think of a reason why that would happen. So if you have an idea, I would be very interested in hearing about it. I'm not a big salmon eater. In fact, I'm not in any kind of a salmon eater. Whether it came out of a pen or whether it was ocean caught, I would probably, if forced to eat either or, I would choose the ocean caught over the locally grown version any day. It just doesn't ring true to me that anything grown in that sort of a fashion is going to be terribly flash. And I believe a lot of that sort of salmon winds up in cat food and other bits and pieces that don't necessarily always wind up in the human food chain, but there is a lot of it that does wind up in the human food chain. So wild salmon only. I don't know if that's John West. I'm not here to give plugs to tuna or fishing salmon companies, so I think we can probably walk away from that one with a little bit of style. Speaking of style, Three-Eye Atlas. Now, since somebody dropped this on me the other day, I forget now who it was, and I don't know why I didn't see it beforehand. Three-Eye Atlas, 3 equals C, CIA, TLAS. Don't know what that might stand for. Do we think Three-Eye Atlas is a CIA psyop? Well, there is a lot of evidence that might suggest it could be that, but to what end? Well, there is only one end that the cabal, the deep state, whatever you want to call it, has been working towards since its inception, and that is one world government. And they were hoping that their very strong foothold into Europe through the European Parliament was going to help them extend their grip from the UN and across Europe. And of course, Australia being dutiful little followers who were lining up for admission to NATO. Are you right? The North American Treaty Alliance. Anyway, North Atlantic, rather, I beg your pardon, not North American. Yeah, we don't even have the Atlantic anywhere near us. We're in the wrong hemisphere for all of that shit. But our elbow, he had to be there for it, because if he wasn't going to be there for that, there'd be no Trump for you, Elbow. No Trump for you. Aussie Cossack. I want to be respectful in what I say here, because I believe that the Aussie Cossack has been railroaded, and the charges that were put against him for assaulting an elderly gentleman at a protest were bogus at best. And if anybody had have viewed the footage of the incident, because it was all captured with a common sense and fair mind, would have read the situation for what it was, a 70-something-year-old man trying to charge the Aussie Cossack with a flagpole that he was holding. He was trying to charge him going up a set of stairs. And one would always tell you in a battle, the superior position is the higher ground. The Aussie Cossack did not push him down those stairs in any way, shape or form. He had to defend himself from the being impaled by the flag, and left his straight arm out. Now, when you run into the Cossack, he's a big boy. He's not going to move much, and you might bounce. And that's exactly what this elderly gentleman did. he bounced and fell backwards and then fell down the 2 or 3 stairs that he had charged up with his flag, cracking his head on the ground when he got back down on there. Now, he bounced up pretty quick and was ready to go swinging. But, of course, by then it was all Aussie Cossack pushed him, which was not the case at all. The railroading of the Aussie Cossack in his court, they had that case heard in absentia, but not only heard in absentia, heard at the blink of an eye. They saw that his, when I say they, the judiciary saw that the Cossack's lawyer was in court that day on another matter, not for the Cossack, and they pulled him aside and said, we're going to hear that matter now. And he said, well, you can't. My client isn't here, isn't able to, say anything. Bad luck. You tell him 2:00 this afternoon, I think it was, to be here. And if he's not here, then we're going to hear it in absentia. Cossack by that stage was already in the Russian consulate in Sydney and getting used to his new suite. That's where he's stayed now for 3 years, just about. And in absentia, they convicted him of this assault on this old bloke and gave him, I want to say it was 12 months from memory, 12 months inside. He was out on bail at the time for the previous indiscretion, shall we say, of naming a pedophile before he'd been convicted. And even though the Cossack played a central role in getting that pedophile convicted, Rosenthal, the guy's name was, got 19 years, right? Russian Orthodox priest, got 19 years for kiddie fiddling. And so the bastard should. I hope he's not looked after in jail in any way, shape or form. But the Cossack was on bail at that time, so that would mean he broke bail and they would put him back in for the rest of that particular case. I want to say he was in for a lot longer than 4 months, but I want to say he was in for more than 4 months, but some articles are quoting just 4 months. So 3 years the Cossack has been there. His wife is not locked to the consulate, so to speak. She can leave. The police aren't chasing her for anything. But if Aussie Cossack sets 1 foot outside of the consulate, then in theory, the New South Wales police will be there to pounce and they will take him straight to Silverwater Correctional Facility and lock him up for 12 months. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Just go straight to jail. So the Aussie Cossack, as he said to me on the phone when I rang him the day he went into the, we obviously were still talking at the time, but it was the day or the day after he'd gone into the consulate. And he said that he was doing a Julian Assange, unquote, which I sort of smirked about at the time. I said, well, yes and no. I understand what you're trying to do. I just don't know that it's going to work the way that Assange's will. And it hasn't, unfortunately. Although in certain aspects it appears that it has. Because the Aussie Cossack, aside from getting a bit whingy recently about parades happening or protests happening in Sydney without his involvement, without his consent, without his input, he has been able to get himself a little bit of publicity and have a whinge publicly. It's who he's whinging about and where he's doing the whinging that I'm rather interested in. So the Aussie Cossack says staff at Sydney's Russian consulate are trying to push him out. And he has a Russian passport, remember, right? That's going to be important. So Simeon has lived there in the embassy since December 2022. He moved there Right. So, sorry about that. Bloody computer. I think she's just getting too hot for the world, unfortunately. So anyway, apologies. Back to normal transmission for as long as it lasts. I do have a blower here to try and blow some air into the old girl, so we will do so on a gentle note in the not too distant future. At any rate, Simeon has decided he's going to stay at the consulate. He's saying he'd rather die than go to jail. I understand that. Now, he's done this interview with the ABC, which I found interesting because the ABC ordinarily would not be a friend of the Aussie Cossack, even though most of them are communist bastards that work there anyway. The Cossack may, because he's very good at identifying this sort of person, he may have identified them as potential help. But what kind of help will the ABC be? Well, John Ruddock, who has appeared on many a Aussie Cossack stage in Sydney for different protest events, has come out and said that he's one of his mates, and in the New South Wales Parliament, he's urged the Parliament to show some leniency to the Aussie Cossack, which might get him either a pardon, which is about the only way that I can see him getting out of spending some time in jail, whether it be a short term until they get him out on bail to appeal this sentence and actually get a fair trial, which he did not receive by any stretch of the imagination. The abusive process was staggering to convict him of this crime that sent him into the consulate. Now, he's about to have a baby. Well, he's not. Mrs. Cossack is about to have the baby. And I'm sure she'll be able to go and have the baby anywhere she likes, at any hospital in Sydney, because she's able to go out wherever. I'm equally sure the Cossack, by the sound of it, isn't welcome to turn the consulate into a maternity ward, by the sound of it either. And he is telling the ABC that they are really, really trying to push him out. They are making everything very, very difficult for him, setting him up for failure. They're trying to make it so impossible for him to do absolutely anything. They are denying him visitors. They are locking him in his room. And I have a picture. Here's the Aussie Cossack's bedroom. Well, we're not sure that you can tell that that's a bedroom or not. It may not be the Aussie Cossack's bedroom, but that's the building he's staying in, and all the windows look like that. So we presume that they all have toilets like that or bedrooms like that, one of the two. Might even be the lounge room window for all we know. I do have seen the odd bit of footage from inside the consulate. They do not have suites as such. They have more like very basic cells to live in. They do have beds, not cement. But it's a very austere form of living. And by the sound of it now, he is being locked in his room, a bit like being in jail. So the choice has to come now for the Aussie Cossack what to do. Whinging to the ABC about his position, particularly whinging about the consulate, the hand that is literally feeding him, and he's biting it. That isn't going to go down well, and he may well emulate Julian Assange in more ways than one, probably sooner rather than later, if this keeps up. And by that, I mean the embassy is likely to say to the New South Wales police, send in 6 of your best and come and get him. We've had enough. Now, Simeon, of course, has a way that he can avert all of this, but it's pretty severe. He now has Russian citizenship. So it would be a small matter of a blue-plated car drive to the airport, blue plates being diplomatic, him being put in what is ostensibly a diplomatic pouch and sent back to Mother Russia, where he could live happily ever after as a very free man for as long as he wanted in Mother Russia, which he would love, but I'm not sure Mrs. Cossack would be terribly chuffed about, as all her family are here. And so is his, admittedly. But that realistically is the only option at this stage, unless he wants to spend some time in a New South Wales jail fighting for an appeal to overturn a erroneous, what I believe is a very erroneous conviction. They were headhunting him, but he did make himself a headhuntable target, and he was proud to be that target. So to get up and whinge about it, particularly on the ABC, I found interesting. The ABC would have only had him on because they'd be hoping to get a story or a trap. And if it wasn't either of those, they'd be eyeing him up as a possible Russian correspondent in the future if he can get out of the consulate. And as I say, he's going to need to employ his political friends. And for those people who always wondered whether or not there was any political influence involved in the Cossack's life, and they ever had any doubt about it, then you need only look at the names that will be standing up for him in this regard, and they will be plentiful, I would hope, because he has done a lot for them. And I'm talking of the likes of Craig Kelly, John Ruddock. There's quite a few others through New South Wales that he's helped promote, helped give a leg up, taken a few bucks off along the way, mind you. But at the end of the day, they call him a friend in Parliament. Well, they're going to have to try and help their friend here if he has any show of getting out of the Russian consulate. And he's acknowledging now, of course, that he is just a propaganda instrument for the Russian government. And I hope he's woken up to the fact that there is no point in having an Aussie Cossack based in Russia. There'll be some mild entertainment content value out of it for a short period of time. But after that, not at all. Boring. There's a million other Aussie Cossacks who'll be Russian Cossacks in Russia, all trying to do the same thing and wondering why he blew it here in Australia and had to go back to Mother Russia, where he didn't get born and doesn't have to live there. But his own country now apparently has set against him, or at least his own state has set against him. Well, he did, if you might remember the Aussie Cossacks' earlier YouTube channels, he did make fools out of the New South Wales police. Actually, let me rephrase that. The New South Wales police force made fools of themselves in front of the Aussie Cossack while he happened to be carrying a camera. And they didn't like him for that. The Aussie Cossack was very good at keeping us entertained, very good at giving us a laugh, very good with a very pointed sense of humour at attacking bureaucrats, government officials, and making them look like idiots. That was the Aussie Cossack's strength. When he decided to get hyper-political and get more involved and become an organiser of these sorts of things, that's when he lost his edge. That's when he lost we the people, because he wasn't a Russian Aussie larrikin taking the piss anymore. He was a Russian sort of Aussie working for we don't know who. The only thing we could be sure of is that the only person who wouldn't miss out would be him. Now, whether that was a real thing or an imagined thing doesn't really matter. The reality, well, perception is reality. If you are perceived to be something by the people, then you are that something until the people perceive you otherwise. How do you change a perception? Well, you have to change your actions. We've probably not seen too many changes of action around the Cossack. But that's not to say there can't be. And I'll be honest, I'd be sympathetic to a way to try and get him out of this predicament that he is in. I actually know a human rights lawyer who might look into this kind of thing. But I don't know. The Aussie Cossack rang me a couple of weeks ago at 11:15 at night, which would have been 12:15 in his part of the world. Now, I didn't answer the phone, mainly because I was doing something else. But I left a message the next day, sent him a text that said, sorry, I missed your call. Give me a ring back. Now, I haven't heard back. So I'm guessing he might have had a couple of vodkas and was a bit pissy at me and wanted to ring up and tell me, in which case, don't bother. I don't care. But I did tell him the last time we were talking that I'm happy to try and help him get out of this in some way, shape or form. But I don't want to, anyway, he hasn't reached out, doesn't need my help to get him out. And I don't even know that my help would help, but we would see. So the Cossack is stuck where he is until such time as he either decides to go back to Mother Russia, where he can walk around in the snow for 11 and a half months of the year, doing Aussie Cossack walk-ups on Russian police and see how well they enjoy that sense of humour over there. Or we can do a genuine attempt at getting an appeal heard. The problem is I think he has to come out of the consulate to get the appeal heard. He has to appear. And if he does appear, he'll be arrested on site and sent straight to Silverwater, where he'll stay for the duration of that appeal, which they could, if they liked, keep bumping it, and he could spend a year on remand waiting for that appeal to come through. So I understand why he's a bit reticent to come out. And yes, I do believe he's been treated very, very, very harshly. However, the Aussie Cossack is not unused to harsh dealings or having to deal harshly.
When you come
with
to
people.
Sydney, mate, just know this is the Aussie Cossack's backyard.
But sometimes
And what a clustered fuck this is.
it's just what happens. Turns into it sometimes, sadly. So I hope that the Aussie Cossack can find a way out. It would be a much nicer existence, I would hope, for his family, his new young family, when his son is born. And I believe they know it's a boy coming. So when his son is born, sometime early in December, I'm led to believe, another Sagittarian, then who knows? When you become a parent, as I'm sure you all know, a lot of what you thought changes, and things that were once terribly important to you are no longer important to you. Other things become more important, and you work towards those. We will see what happens in that regard. How much? No, that's going to be unfair on the Cossack. I don't want to be unfair on the Cossack. His son deserves to have a father who can spend quality time with him and teach him the things that only fathers can teach their sons. That needs, in an Australian atmosphere at the very least, to be taught in the great outdoors, not the short and small backyard of the Russian consulate. So there might be a little bit of short-term pain for a much longer-term gain if the Aussie Cossack can see a way forward. And that might happen when his son is born. And truly, my best to both he and Mrs. Cossack on the impending birth of their newborn boy. It'll be very exciting for all, and I wish them all the best. Very exciting, very exciting. Let me go back to the comments here and have a look, see what you guys have been saying here. Alex Jones should do a story. He was on InfoWars. Well, what's Alex Jones going to do? Upset the Russians? There's no great point in Alex Jones isn't going to do anything to help the Aussie Cossack unless it helps Alex Jones. And this is essentially how the Aussie Cossack has worked his end of the business here in Australia. He does nothing to help anybody else unless it benefits him. And that is why a lot of people in this movement are very shy of the Aussie Cossack, because he's very good at asking for help and very shy about delivering or remembering the help he's been given, the favours he's been shown, or the variety of other things. And so that's why getting help now from a lot of people is difficult, because they don't trust him and they know he doesn't have their back when the time comes down to it, because he's shown he doesn't. So those people who choose to go and help him choose to do so at their own peril, I guess, with a full expectation that you might get a thank you. And if you get a thank you, you've done well. But I honestly do believe he's been hard done by with this particular matter. And while it looked funny and probably felt pretty cool at the time to go into that consulate under the "I'm doing a Julian Assange," I think 3 years in, rethinking it, this all would have been over and done with inside 12 months. If he'd have, played the game in the court, he would have been able to put forward very, very compelling video evidence, very compelling evidence from sports and movement doctors who can show the fella charging up the steps with the flag, using it almost like a jousting stick, was trying to impale the Aussie Cossack. And all the Cossack did was stick a hand out. This fella ran into it and bounced off it and fell down the stairs. It's very sad, but that's the reality of what happened. The stupidity of the charges, well, just goes to show the corruption of the New South Wales police force, I guess. At the time, a lot of things have changed inside many police forces in this country since that happened. But have they changed enough? I don't know. My dealings with the New South Wales police force in recent times have indicated to me that they have a very long memory of the fools that they were made to look by the Aussie Cossack. They have a very long memory. So that means that there is a boss somewhere in there who's got to be in his bonnet about the fact that Aussie Cossack made some very good content and gave people a lot of relief at a time when this nation needed that sort of relief. And yes, so the police were the butt of the jokes in many cases, or their actions were the butt of the jokes, or their bosses who put the orders out were the butt of the jokes. But all he was doing was showing the absolute stupidity of it. And therefore, if the police, I feel, are feeling a bit butthurt about that, they should be questioning the people who gave them those orders, rather than questioning those who pushed back against them. Because the ones that gave you the orders, the ones that pushed all that forward, and I'm talking here about your politicians, they're the ones who did this to you, not the Aussie Cossack. They're the ones who made you look like fools. The Aussie Cossack was just there to capture the moment. It's that simple. But who knows? There might be a fairy in his future that comes along and helps him. And in Sydney, God knows there's plenty of fairies there. So there should be no shortage of hands up. That's probably the wrong analogy now that I think about it. What are we? We're nearly gone an hour. So I'm going to run tonight because there are guests here at the house and I have to go out and have some dinner with them. But before we go, I would like to show you this little thing here. This is happening in Taiwan at the moment, and I don't know that we can exactly blame the Chinese on it. So that is a mud volcano that is currently erupting. But what you might notice in the mud volcano is the fact that there are flames coming out of the mud volcano. This is a bit like the fracking flames we've seen on dams and creeks. Well, this has been going on for a couple of days, and Taiwan, this is a little province in the southern area of Taiwan, known for its mud volcanoes, interestingly enough. A touristy kind of spot, but this is the most active the mud volcanoes have ever been. They're not unlike Rotorua in New Zealand, but I don't think New Zealand's mud volcanoes are spewing out flame, sort of 12, 15 feet out. Why is it doing that? Well, there's a lot of movement in the tectonic plates, and that's been evidenced all over the world with various different anomalies happening. Now, we were talking the other day about a couple of different movements of volcanoes and of earthquakes and of landslides. And Campi del Fregle, I think is how you say it, in Italy is something we were talking about a few weeks ago. There is a huge caldera there that involves an area of probably 1,000 square kilometers or more, 10,000 square kilometers, I beg your pardon. And part of that involves a large chunk of the ocean. And if this caldera goes up, as it's increasingly looking like there's something going to happen there at any rate, then it will be quite devastating, certainly for Europe, very much so for Italy and Naples in particular. And right now, I think I showed you some footage a few weeks back of roads in that area that are bubbling, roads that have been repaired because parts of the magma chamber underneath have broken through and just melted the bitumen. That has continued, and there are now a number of small magma outbreaks, not real pressure releases as such, more like a slow ooze happening at the moment in certain parts of the area. So if you're planning a trip to Italy, just be very, very aware that that whole Campi del Fregle area is under extreme government watch at the moment, with geological surveys and the American USGS, whatever they, US Geological Society, have put all sorts of sensors down. I'm amazed, actually, that I would like to know, really like to know who makes these sensors, because in the last 12, 18 months, 2 years, they've put more sensors on more rocks, on more mountains, in more oceans than they ever have at any previous time in history. The world is moving, folks. It is changing. And all I'm hoping for is the fact that there isn't a dickhead at the wheel. Talk to you tomorrow.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life.
It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's rock!